brand new turn-based RPGs releasing in 2024. There's an insane amount of role-playing games releasing every year, so after scouring through hundreds, here are the top picks for this more deliberate and strategic type of RPG. Will you take a turn with any of them? Let's find out. Beast False Prophet. This one is meant to be a brutal, gridless tactical RPG that sends you into the Dark Ages, rife with plague and raiders. You join forces with your war band, develop your skills, and unleash your inner beast to shred through enemies. But your choices will have consequences. So when it comes to tactical RPGs, it is always kind of a what is a tactical RPG? And how is it different from a tactics game or just another turn-based kind of RPG? I want to clarify right here at the start of this list video where, it's gonna be very difficult to draw hard objective lines, but basically tactical RPGs are more RPG than just tactics games like XCOM, but they're not quite as RPG as more Dungeons and Dragons kind of classic RPGs like Baldur's Gate 3. Anyway, for Beast False Prophet, this one is looking pretty brutal and violent. There's a lot of footage of quite intense imagery. They're offering a unique beast system where you exercise or exorcise your inner beast. You get to decide. And there's this insanity system that pushes you to make difficult moral decisions during combat. And besides the insanity within you, there's the insanity without in the Dark Ages, which is, in this game, atmospheric, story-rich, grim, dark, and inspired by Carpathian legends, which basically means there's only evil. This is not a world of good and evil, there's only lesser evil and greater evil. And how you plan and get around the battlefield is gonna be key for your survival. Now, this game has released into early access towards the end of 2023, to few but very positive user reviews on Steam. So it hasn't gotten a lot of traction right at the start of early access, but it seems like it's going well, and they are committed to a full release in 2024. So it shouldn't be too long until we get a full version of Beast False Prophet, and I think it might be worth having a look at. Then for today's sponsor, Goblin Stone. You don't play the heroes in this one. You're the lowly hunted goblins who have almost been driven to extinction. And if you want to check this one out, click the link below. In this turn-based RPG adventure with a rogue-like twist, you gather a ragtag group of goblins, explore a fantastical hand-drawn world, engage in tactical position-based combat, you customize your goblin's abilities and equipment, there's hundreds of combinations, all while your story being fully narrated. Oh, and when I say customize goblins, yes, there's a breeding system. There's base building too. Your goblin lair can be expanded chamber by chamber, and there's always something to do, as there's also a sprawling procedurally generated world. Personally, I've been playing through this, and the art plus narration really creates a cozy vibe, and being the underdogs does drive you forward because you start to really want to get revenge for the bullying your goblins have been suffering. Generally, this one seems to draw inspiration from a lot of popular turn-based tactical RPGs like Darkest Dungeon, but combines it into a unique thing that does feel pretty different. It's charming, with a heartwarming story, and challenging at times. So it's worth checking out because it covers a lot of bases. Goblin Stone has already released, so click the link below now, you can see what the user reviews are, and jump in if it seems interesting. Next we've got Crown Wars, the Black Prince. The War of Crowns rages on. Knights and brigands run rampant throughout the land, sowing destruction. From your castle base, you rise to become the Lord who leads the battle against the forces of evil. Now, the nice thing about this one is that there is a free demo that you can just jump in to check out, and you notice that base building is a big part in a lot of these tactical RPGs. In this particular one, you're building up a castle. So this one is based on the 100 Years' War, 14th century France, and it's a medieval setting. But there are some elements of the dark arts and the occult which influence the gameplay and thematics. In terms of the gameplay content, it is promising a long-term campaign. Your castle can be upgraded to 7 buildings, and you can restore your estate to its former glory. You can forge weapons, concoct new potions, and create new items that you can use in battle. You build a squad of 6 soldiers of different classes, and you can optimize their turns to make the best use of the skills. So it's all about how you strategize and approach battles. You will be rewarded for being a tactical genius. So yeah, you'll be customizing your companions, going out on missions and quests. You can even capture prisoners of war and ransom them for rewards. But everything does come down to the action and the combat in terms of how well you're going to do in this game. It does look like it's very promising. It is just about releasing, and there's been a free demo, so you can see what Crown Wars: The Black Prince has been like building up to release, and you can see what the reviews say now. And then for a turn-based JRPG, Eiyuden Chronicle: 100 Heroes. Now, I'm not sure if this counts as a tactical RPG, but it is a turn-based one, in a classic kind of JRPG fashion. This one is promising over 100+ playable characters through a war-torn world that you have to save. And it's supposed to be a modern take on the classic JRPG, so it's not like old school, but it's still a little bit old school. And I'm thinking if you're looking for turn-based RPGs or tactical RPGs, this would sort of fall into it, but you let me know what you think. Now, looking at the game, it does seem to have everything you would expect from a JRPG, exploring a fantastical world. There's plenty of crazy characters, big flashy abilities, there's battles and war and conflict and drama. And also, just to note, this was a Kickstarter-funded game in 2020, so it's been a number of years now, and it is finally releasing, which is exciting for some. It's currently set for a 23rd of April 2024 release date, and it seems like it's good to go. So this one will be releasing relatively soon, if not already. And if you're looking for a new JRPG, Eiyuden Chronicle: 100 Heroes does seem to be anticipated in that particular subgenre. Hey, now that you're a bit into the list, I'm sure you're enjoying it, so it would be greatly appreciated if you can like the video. Thank you. Alright, next game. Nemire. Now, at first glance, this just looks like a little indie pixel art kind of game, but there's some interesting ideas here. This is a turn-based tactical RPG where you are an immortal warlord controlling a squad of undead in a medieval fantasy world. You'll be slaying, crushing, burning, and poisoning the filthy humans for their souls to infuse your squad with new powers and advance for total annihilation. This does seem to be a theme these days in these games where the humans are the bad guys and you are reverse role. You're playing who would typically be framed as the bad guy, but you are now playing them as the good guy, or at least as the anti-hero. In this one, there is turn-based tactical combat. You'll be building your squad of ever-evolving undead. There's random unit traits to modify how abilities and attacks work. There's a combination of handcrafted and procedurally generated environments, so there will be the sort of curated experience, but I have also noticed in a lot of tactical games that there is the procedurally generated element to basically offer infinite gameplay, but how infinite it really is depends from game to game. Some games are just the same thing again and again. Even though it's procedurally generated, it's basically the same thing. Other games, the procedural generation is really creative, and it does seem to feel handcrafted, but also fresh in a little bit of a way every single run. So we'll see how this one goes in that regard. It is also promising meaningful unit progression, a gradually ramping up of difficulty, and impactful abilities, which, from the footage we've seen so far, does seem to have that tactics vibe. You can actually see much more of this as it has already released. It released on the 19th of February 2024, and it's received very few user reviews, but they are mostly positive. So it seems to be a niche game, but if you haven't heard of it and it seems interesting, have a look and see if this is one that you want to be raising some undead in. Next up, we've got Wantless, Solace at World's End. You have to save your patients from themselves. You'll be crafting skills among millions of combinations, you'll be healing the mind and facing ever-growing nightmares in a series of 10-minute runs. All the while, you're trying to overcome an insidious curse, rampaging through this dystopic sci-fi tactical RPG. So in this game, you're playing one of the last remaining transposers, which is a doctor who can delve into your patients' tortured minds. And it has that sort of jumping into minds and then having tactical battles to cure them, I guess. It's a dynamic combat system with a mental health theme, I think. Or maybe it's just more of an insanity theme. It's meant to be dark and grim and psychotic, and that might be a bit heavy for a number of you, but if you're looking for a more serious sort of theme, then this is one that you can check out right now. It entered early access towards the end of 2023, and it's planning for 1 year in early access, so it's looking at a 2024 full release. But also, you don't have to commit too much. There is a free demo at the time of recording, so you can see if Wantless, Solace at World's End is the kind of tactical RPG experience that you're looking for, but if it's feeling a bit too heavy, don't worry, we've got a lot more on this list. Broken Alliance. This is from the creators of Death and Taxes, and it's a turn-based adventure strategy RPG kind of game, where you play one of 4 distinct factions. You'll be harnessing the vast powers of magic to save your dying world, and the way you play determines the sacrifices and consequences you have to endure. In true RPG fashion, there are consequences to your choices. That's a very important point for RPGs. So you'll be making up your own story as you go through this game. Now, at first glance, this does look like Heroes of Might and Magic or Age of Wonders, that kind of game, exploring through the world, encountering creatures, encountering characters. But there's also a card-based combat system that's unique to each faction. And you'll also be raiding or capturing locations, subduing and convincing other factions, solving ancient puzzles, collecting magical plants, unearthing mighty artifacts, earning the loyalty of your heroes, guiding them down personal quests, gathering resources, discovering secrets, and rallying the various peoples of the world. So yeah, this is kind of a 4X, but kind of an RPG, but it's definitely got turn-based tactical battles. It's a hard one to place, but also we haven't seen all that much of Broken Alliance. It's got some nice, lovely pixel art screenshots, which is nice. I'm a personal fan of pixel art, and the pixel art here is nice looking, creative, a little bit cartoony, but it is very clear on the eyes for those who are okay with pixel art. I know some people just hate pixel art no matter what. It's an art style. It's like pointillism or micromosaics or crochet. It's sort of like that. It's just an art style. It's not a limitation of technology. But anyway, Broken Alliance, I thought it'd be an interesting one to note. We can move on to the next game. Sword of Convallaria. This is a fantasy tactical RPG which is trying to revitalize the beloved Japanese turn-based pixel art genre. You know, Final Fantasy Tactics, right? You collect and train a roster of mercenaries, you customize your squad, and you use your own strategy to save the nation of EMPYRE. You journey through the world, filled with plot twists, they say, where every choice you make is supposed to reshape your destiny. We'll see if they can actually pull that off. They boast a profound story, which is a big boast, but okay, we'll see if they can actually do it. And there's strategic turn-based combat on grid-based terrain. You deploy your unique allies against diverse enemies, And you use the terrain to your advantage, cliffs, boulders, obstacles. But then outside of the battle, there's choice-based narrative. So there's a lot of choices to make as you go through the dialogue, as you go through the story. And as we have been talking about pixel art, this one brings up the appropriate term. They call it neo-pixel, which is the idea of retaining the popular pixel-style graphics while adding modern 3D renderings, shaders, bloom, depth of field, HDR. Some pixel art games even have ray tracing. It sort of brings the pixel art style with modern effects, so that's what makes it modern pixel art, which is a stylistic choice rather than pixel art of the 8-bit era, which was a technological limitation which forced a stylistic choice. But anyway, for someone who likes pixel art, this game does look really nice actually. The color schemes, the art style, it's very pleasant and interesting to look at. So I like the way it looks. How it plays, you can judge it for yourself. Now it is labeled to be a free-to-play game and it's supposed to be releasing in 2024, but before that, you can just try the free demo, which is available right now while I'm making this video. So you can try Sword of Convallaria, the demo, and then you can see whether this is one that you want to be waiting for the full release later in the year. And then we have Those Who Rule. This is a turn-based tactical RPG, of course, where you command a group of new recruits in a low fantasy, morally grey world. One of my personal favorite things in RPGs is morally grey areas, because choices should be hard like that in an RPG. It adds a sense of realism. Anyway, you expand and level up your party, you equip custom weapons, and you outmaneuver your opponents on the battlefield as you uncover the truth behind an endless conflict that's affecting your country. So overall, it sounds like a turn-based tactical RPG. Even thematically and story-wise, does sound familiar. Now, looking at the game, it does have this nice hand-drawn art style, some very nice background art, and the battles are pretty tactical, taking place on hexes. So you can see what the game is like. It's pretty straightforward. And also, it is aiming for a Q4 2024 full release, but there is also a free demo here, which is fantastic. So if you are intrigued by Those Who Rule, or just a little bit cautious about it, you can see more of it, you can try it yourself, and then you can decide whether you want to rule in Those Who Rule. Star Shift Legacy. The year is 2357, humans have explored the stars and colonized many worlds under the authority of the Earth Systems Alliance, the ESA. Amidst the chaos of a civil war, you have to forge your own legacy. Now this one does look very retro. It's pixel art, but it's like the old school kind of pixel art, and you can even see like the world maps are this sort of 2.5D, and then the systems, the star systems you're flying around, it looks like Master of Orion kind of thing, but then also you go down and do stuff. It's weird, it's interesting, it's a kind of a JRPG, futuristic setting. Hard to place, hard to explain. The footage kind of has to do most of the talking here. There's supposed to be over 100 playable characters and many hours of gameplay, branching story arcs, base and empire building, there's strategic turn-based combat, and there's a tactical battle system for your fleet and army. So you have this sort of big map, fleet and army, then there's strategic turn-based combat, which is like more zoomed in with your characters. And I do appreciate the addition of base and empire building in a lot of RPGs these days. It's sort of, I feel bases sort of anchor the RPG experience to sort of a home point. And I know it can get very tedious in some games, but I still think it's a generally good idea to have that base of operations in an RPG, unless it's more of a sort of free-form, nomad-like wandering adventure RPG. But I don't know, I just like the bases. Anyway, Star Shift Legacy is a confusing one. It might be interesting. There is a free demo. There is a free demo for this one as well, so maybe it's just best if you try the free demo and then see if Star Shift Legacy can leave a mark. Going the other way in time, Grand Arms March of the Red Dragon. Here we have a squad-based tactical RPG with auto turn-based combat with real-time with pause map movement. So this one is sort of interesting. It's kind of like an auto battler with cards, but then you have this sort of big map real-time with pause army sort of thing going on where you defend your territory and you're supposed to unite Wales against the English invaders. So it is pretty historical as well, or at least based on history. It's inspired by the classic JRPGs like Battle Ogre and Ogre Battle 64. And actually, looking at this game, I do want to mention a recent standout success, Unicorn Overlord. It's been making its rounds recently and everyone's been talking about Unicorn Overlord. And that's sort of a real-time with pause tactical RPG. Even though if you look at the footage, it kind of looks turn-based, that's more of a animation auto-battler? I don't know how to describe these sorts of games. Are they turn-based? I'm really not too sure. You know what? I'm gonna do something weird here, and I'm also gonna just mention Unicorn Overlord at the same time as Grand Arms March of the Red Dragon. Because looking at Unicorn Overlord, it's another similar thing like this, where it has this real-time with pause grand strategy kind of map, but then when battles take place, they are turn-based, but they're also auto-battler. And I know there's a number of classic games that have done this as well, where you sort of set up behaviors and skills and patterns and formations and then engage in battle, and then a turn-based battle takes place. You don't control your characters in the battle. They sort of do their own thing based on a strategy and priority list that you've set up, or whatever you've set up for your units and stuff. I don't know whether this counts as a turn-based game. You let me know. Should Grand Arms March of the Red Dragon and also Unicorn Overlord, both releasing or released in 2024, be turn-based tactical RPG? I guess kind of yes, but it's so hard. Are they technically real-time? Or I don't know. You let me know. They're both looking quite promising. Unicorn Overlord has already gotten a big start. Like a lot of people are talking about it. And the one that's going to probably compete with it is Grand Arms March of the Red Dragon. I'm sure you know what you're looking for. Going back to something that's definitely turn-based, EMPYRE Earls of the Deep Earth. This is set in a strange world, and looking at it, it is also very strange. You're trying to solve the mystery of your missing memory. You have amnesia, and you can't quite tell whether you're trapped, whether you can leave, where are you? It's set in a neo-Victorian version of the Orient, so the setting is kind of weird. And you will be embarking on a journey to explore this wondrous land filled with mystery and intrigue. You think the year is 1899, but you're not quite sure, but it's basically set during the kind of Industrial Revolution kind of era. And it's a classic isometric tactical RPG with a story-driven campaign, which is generally what you want, and it's taking place before a great flood that changed the Empire world. So you can expect surreal landscapes, a new kind of way to wage combat, and you can experiment with medicine. But having said that, it has released. This game has released on the 12th of March 2024, so just recently when I'm making this video it has released. And it hasn't really gotten much traction. No one really has been talking about it. There's not really any user reviews on Steam right now. So it's kind of a sleeper release, and just generally, it's hard to tell whether people are gonna like it or not, or whether you'll like it or not. But I did think I should mention it here because it is a released game in this subgenre, so you can have a closer look at EMPYRE Earls of the Deep Earth. There's probably some footage out there of it. And I did find it, and I wanted to share it because it fits the lists. But you can decide for yourself whether this is something that you want. For a bit more fantasy, Zodiac Legion. Here we have a turn-based tactical RPG where you take command of an arcane chivalric order. You expand your potential in a world of reawakening magic. You've got a stronghold to build up, you can research astral powers, and you lead your champions in combat against forces and beasts and monsters from beyond myth and memory. An interesting point here is that the dungeons are fully destructible, which means the walls and obstacles, you can just bust through them. And usually you don't see these kind of isometric, pixel art, tactical RPGs with full-on destructible environments, or the ability to reshape the environment yourself by using spells to create blockages or reshaping the terrain itself. As you go through the game, your warriors will become mighty champions if they don't die, and there's plenty of spells and world to explore. It is aiming for a Q4 2024 early access release, and it's supposed to be in early access for roughly 1 year, so it might enter early access towards the end of this year and then a full release in 2025, but of course, a promise for early access towards the end of the year, very likely chance that it's delayed fully into 2025, like early access in 2025, and then early access games tend to run long, so this might actually be a 2026 full release if they don't stick to their schedule. Having said that, there is a free demo right now, so you can give it a try. Zodiac Legion, it's got a free demo as well. Free demos are now the norm. Games that don't have free demos are kind of weird, actually. But free demo for Zodiac Legion, it looks like it's got a lot of potential, but it could have a long ways to go. Next up, we have a samurai kind of game, Shadow of the Road. Here you assemble a team of unlikely heroes in a turn-based RPG set in the blood-tinged dusk of feudal Japan. You test your skills against magical yokai and deadly steampunk technology as you carve your own path through an immersive story that will change the fate of the Empire. There have actually been quite a few Japanese setting samurai kind of games coming out these days. Rise of the Ronin is an action RPG that I've talked about, and I might actually just make a list of samurai-esque games. But anyway, in this one, you don't have a particular main character in the story. You have a team of main characters. You take on the role of a master strategist, and you become an entire team of characters with a variety of backgrounds and skills, each with their own motivations, desires, and fears, and you set them on the path that best serves you. So you're kind of more of a dungeon master kind of role in this game, and your players are the characters you're messing around with. There are different roads, different outcomes, you make choices, there are consequences. You go down specific paths and you can't go back the other way. But of course it all does boil down to the tactical combat. And also, the game just kind of looks nice. It's got a nice visual style, and the mixing of feudal Japan with steampunk technology is kind of a classic setting at this point. I assume probably thanks to anime, but there might be other references as well. But steampunk feudal Japan is a popular setting, and it does just seem kind of to gel quite well, that adoption of new technology with a hint of fantasy and magic. Shadow of the Road, there's no specific release window right now, but they have been working hard at it. There's been a number of updates and relatively frequent news through devlogs, so I do expect we'll see a lot more of Shadow of the Road through 2024 and maybe a release. And I will make a note here because people tend to ask, how can you list this as a 2024 game when there's no specific release window yet? Well, based on my experience and based on the decade I've been making these lists, one thing I have learned is that many games only get a release date months before the release date. I had to list Dragon's Dogma 2 and Rise of the Ronin, as I mentioned, before they had release windows. And then like a couple months after I make that list for 2024, Dragon's Dogma 2 and Rise of the Ronin get early in the year release dates. Dragon's Dogma 2 got a 22nd of March release date, just like 2 or 3 months. Like they got their release date in December. So when I'm making an upcoming games list, I always have to predict whether a game is likely to get a release date in the year or not, and that's always a challenge. But that's why, even though Shadow of the Road does not have a specific release window right now, I'm mentioning it for a 2024 list. And then for one that is very hyped, I'm pretty sure, King Arthur Legion IX, or Legion 9. Dive into a unique blend of turn-based tactics and character-centric RPGs where you lead the skilled Roman tribune Gaius Julius Mento as he navigates through the dark fantasy realm of Avalon. Now, for those of you who haven't heard of this particular King Arthur series, basically there was a giant war, King Arthur died, a lot of people died, but then some necromancer just started bringing everyone back to life. And King Arthur, the once good guy, is now kind of the bad guy, but they're undead, and it's a lot of fantasy, undead necromancy kind of stuff. And this is a new standalone game that's aiming to release in a Q2 2024 release window, so sometime towards the middle of the year. And it does seem to be bringing back what people want from this kind of game. It's turn-based tactical RPG, magic, spells, abilities, dialogue, choices, base building. But instead of a castle this time, it's the city of Nova Roma, which just means New Rome. So you're rebuilding New Rome, not built in a day, of course, and you'll be collecting resources and equipment and all sorts of stuff on the missions you embark on. So overall, King Arthur Legion 9, Legion IX, I'm going to say both ways because you might have to type it in. Legion IX is what you're searching for. It's a dark fantasy tactical RPG, turn-based, and I think if you're looking at this list, this is definitely one that you should be looking forward to. There you have it. Press the like button and get games using the GOG referral link below to support videos like this one. Click the link and buy any game, it really does help. Thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members who really support this channel and keeping videos like these being made. Join if you want your name on future videos. If you want to stay in the know for another genre, go to the next list video linked on screen because I'm sure turn-based RPG fans like yourself, you're gonna want to see all the classic D&D style RPGs, or the tactical strategy games as well, which are just more pure tactics. Those games should also take their turns. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you there.